वटस्य पत्रस्य पुटे
Hari Om. Now you can unmute yourselves.
Hari Om Utsav. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Long time no see.
Hari Om.
थोड़ी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है।
अच्छा, आपकी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है? ओ गॉड।
काफी दिन से वायरल है, तो सत्संग नहीं गई आज सुबह वाला में। तुम ठीक हो उत्सव?
मैं एकदम ठीक हूँ, थैंक
आई एम
यू।
लकी, आई एम गुड।
आई एम ऑल्सो वेरी लकी। Thank you. Good to see you, Indraji. Who said bhajans have to be calm and composing? Today I thought I'll change it up a bit. So this is some kirtan sessions on by Swami Vishwaranga. So a couple of bhajans of his. They're available on YouTube. If you liked it, or if you want more information, I can share with you.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, continuing from where we left off in the last class, in chapter 1, he's creating it's quite just about an introduction to Vedanta. Drawing out broadly the role of Vedanta in our lives. What role Vedanta plays, the knowledge plays in our life. So, the idea of Vedanta is that it starts from where you are. It doesn't necessarily ask you to try and conceive or try and change what you're doing or how you're doing. Wherever you are in life, whatever you are doing, whatever role you are doing, whatever situation you are in, it meets you there. That's the beauty of the subject. It's not something that will be applicable later in life. Swamiji recounts an experience, some famous Bollywood actors who were famous in their time, and now their son is a leading Bollywood actor. So some famous Bollywood actors had come to meet him. They had attended his public lecture or something, and then they had come to meet him or something. So then they were just recounting to him, Swamiji, we also tell our son that this knowledge can definitely benefit him very much. But whenever we bring this up, he says, Mom, after 65, please. That's the general conception, that this knowledge, the Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge of Vedanta in general, is meant for a life of retirement. But quite to the contrary, it is meant for those before retirement. By the time you are retired, you should be in Vanaprastha, you should be in Dhyanam. This knowledge is for your Grihasti. This knowledge helps you navigate life and its various challenges, its various turns. Helps you make sense of what's happening within you as well, because you grow with your experiences. How do you translate that? How do you understand that? How do you decode this mind and give it a direction? So that's the role of Vedanta. On the one hand, it procures happiness, and when we say procures happiness, we introduced last time is a fraction. Hmm? It's a fraction between number of desires fulfilled divided by total number of desires. So on the one hand, it helps you with its knowledge fulfill more desires, no doubt. By developing a strong intellect, it helps you succeed in life. So no doubt it helps you fulfill more desires. On the other hand, its knowledge also guides you towards regulating, moderating, and eventually eliminating your desires. So it helps increase the denominator, decrease the denominator. When you decrease the denominator in a fraction, the number goes to infinity. For those of you who are mathematically inclined. So the idea is it helps you procure happiness by managing what's happening here. If there's too much of unresolved stuff, unresolved thoughts and desires, you'll not be happy. Here's a new definition to happiness. Please learn it. Here's a new definition to happiness. Happiness is cessation of mental agitation. See, if I ask you to define happiness, you'll describe it in the form of your desires. Happiness is when you are with those who you love. Happiness is when you get what you really want. When you finally meet who you've been wanting to meet. When you're finally reunited with certain people. When you manage to achieve something you wanted to achieve. So we always think of happiness in terms of objects or beings which we acquire. And therefore our quest always remains, if I get that, I will be happy. For you it's that, for the other person it's that, for the third person is this, for the fourth person it's somewhere else. For everyone there is some object or being or collection of them to which they peg their happiness. But here's a new definition to happiness. Happiness is cessation of mental agitation. You have mental agitation with respect to a certain object or being. And when I say mental agitation, I don't necessarily mean it in a bad way. Mental agitation is just thought flow. Wherever your thoughts flow, what is a desire? A desire is a flow of thought from you to the object of the desire. Wherever there is thought flow, we call it mental agitation. When this mental agitation ceases, that experience is called happiness. When you really want something, what happens? You're producing more and more and more thought about it. You're helplessly thinking about it. You're anticipating it. You're eagerly, anxiously awaiting it. What are all these emotions you're feeling? It's nothing but a truckload of thoughts. And the stronger the flow of thought, the more helpless the flow of thought, we call it a strong desire. That's what a strong desire is. When more voluminous the flow of thought over a period of time or in its intensity, we call it a very strong desire. You long for it, we say. And when that desire ceases, what you experience is happiness. So happiness has little to do with the object per se. Happiness has little to do with the object per se. It has to do with the cessation of the thoughts. The thoughts could go to any object. For you, it goes to someone. For another person, it goes to someone else. For a third person, it goes somewhere else altogether. For a child, the thoughts go to toys. For a youth, the thoughts go to a partner or a career. For an adult, it goes to a family and security. For an old person, God knows where it goes. Adi Shankaracharya says, Balastavat krida saktah, tarunastavat taruni saktah, vriddhastavat chinta saktah. When you're a child, your thoughts go to playthings. When you're an adult, your thoughts go to family. And career. When you're an old person, vriddhastavat chinta saktah. Your thoughts are constantly in chinta. Parame brahmani kopi na saktah. Nobody ever thinks of the mystery of life. Nobody ever thinks about. They're so caught up in this mela. This is literally a mela. It's literally a circus show, and we are caught up in all the rides and attractions. Forgotten why we've come here or how we've come here. We never bother to ask or where we're going from here. So that's what Adi Shankaracharya laments. Parame Brahmani kopi na sakta. Nobody ever thinks about Brahman, about the mystery of life. But Vedanta, beyond procuring your happiness in terms of managing your desires, beyond providing you the formula for success in terms of building your intellect, concentration, consistency, cooperation, beyond all of this, it guides you to unfolding this mystery of life. It helps reveal to you the eternal bliss that lies within you. We've been searching aimlessly, we've been searching endlessly for this fleeting thing called happiness. No sooner we get something we want than 5 other desires spring forth. The search for happiness seems endless. You turn a corner, you think happiness is right there. Oh, then you have to go another corner. Then you have to go another corner. And no matter how much people seem to acquire, there seems no end to acquisition. There's no problem with acquisition. That's an important point that should be made. There's no problem with acquisition. Vedanta doesn't say there's some mistake you are doing. There's some wrong thing you are doing. No, there's no problem in acquisition and enjoyment. Vedanta only wants you to draw your attention to the fact that these are endless. That's it. There's no end game. You get more, you enjoy more, but the story doesn't end there. You'll want more. You'll want something different. You'll want something subtler. So this quest for outer acquisition and enjoyment is endless. Vedanta pronounces the source of true happiness, the destination you are truly seeking, lies within you. So it reveals that knowledge. It systematically explains that knowledge of eternal bliss within.
Eternal bliss within. Your real self is the abode of eternal peace and happiness. Every human being tirelessly seeks it in the world through action, emotion, and knowledge. The search for bliss goes on. None has ever found it. Only the rare one who has directed his search inward has reached that state of supreme bliss. He finds it through realization of himself within. History reveals nations conquering nations. The world has been indulging in hot and cold warfare. What purpose do these conflicts serve? What do they seek? What is their ultimate goal? You would find that all external conflicts are directed only to find internal happiness. People believe that outer conquest can bring about inner peace and bliss. It is a false belief arising out of spiritual ignorance. India has passed that state of spiritual infancy long, long ago. The ancient rishis, sages understood the hollowness of such processes. They had discovered that happiness dwells not in the outward charms of materiality. Real happiness abides in the core of your personality. The native home of happiness is your own self. You discover it through self-realization.
No amount of no amount of talking about it will convince you. Hmm. This is something you have to discover for yourself. This is a not necessarily a conclusion, but at least a query you have to bring up on your own. What am I looking for? And is this the right place I'm looking for it? Hmm? See, when you look at the world, especially if you're a keen observer of history. This world is a constant play of hot and cold warfare, as he says. The world has been indulging in hot and cold warfare. And it's really unique. The last 50, 60, 70 years that we've lived broadly on a world scale, there has been no tremendous war, although some may argue we're at the cusp of something right now. But that's been what's happening. And the quest of nations, the quest of entire civilizations, has been to acquire more land, get more power, gain more suzerainty. That's been the purpose. But for what end? Where has it led us to? Has it brought us ultimate happiness? Are richer people happier? We're not saying wealth doesn't have a role to play. Wealth has a very important role to play. But if wealth per se was the
एक नीचे मैंने आपकी भी ऑन कर दी, सब टाइटल्स आ जाएंगे.
I'd request you to just be a little conscious. You have mics on. If you have a mic on, then please be conscious about it. Or turn off your mic and only unmute yourself to say something if you like. Thank you. So what has been the purpose of nations? What has been the purpose of this conquest? Do those who have more, are they genuinely happier? In fact, to the contrary, we have the prevalence of mental disease far more, one would argue, than it was earlier. It's much more prevalent. So it's quite a paradox. It's quite a paradox. And Vedanta has this proposition. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to believe it. It should simply invoke inquiry. It should simply prod you to think about it. Vedanta says ultimately what you are looking for is not in an external pursuit. What you're looking for is an inner journey. And you discover that abode of happiness through what is called self-realization. It's called self-realization. And the primary funda is exactly what I've introduced to you. Happiness is cessation of thought. The more thoughts you cease, the happier you feel. Lots of thought, unfinished, you're not happy. Lesser thought, you're more calm, you're more peaceful. No thought, you enjoy 100% bliss. That's liberation. That's liberation. Self-realization is a state of thoughtlessness. It's a state where you have transcended the mind and its preoccupations. It's a state you achieve through the depth of meditation. But that's the end game. You don't begin with meditation. You don't start the spiritual journey with meditation. You end the spiritual journey with meditation. The purpose of meditation, it's the gateway to this state of thoughtlessness or self-realization. And that is a goal in itself. That's a goal in itself. So that's the journey it invites you to. And more about this journey we will cover. But here he's simply giving a declaration which should just invoke some thought. The native home of happiness is your own self. That's where it lies. Just keep that thought with.
External pursuit of happiness is futile. It is like trying to grasp the head of your shadow. The more you try, the more it recedes. You can never succeed that way. Instead, let your hand hold your head, the shadow's guard. The source of true happiness lies within you. You need not run after shadows. Instead, seek your inner self. You reach the fountainhead of bliss. If this be true, then why do people still chase material objects? Why are people fascinated by the world? Can all go wrong? No. There is a reason for their external pursuit. The sense objects of the world give them instant pleasures. They pursue the external world for these immediate joys. Think carefully. These pleasures are fleeting, not enduring. They disappear as fast as they appear. The wise do not indulge in such transient pleasures, while the ignorant are lost in them. Here's a simple experiment. Hold a candy in one hand and a wad of currency notes in the other. Offer them to an infant to pick one of the two. The infant reaches for the candy. It knows only the immediate pleasure of the candy. Now, if the same were offered to you, what would you pick? What really makes the difference? The infant is ignorant. You are equipped with the knowledge. So it is with the world. People in their ignorance pick candies in the world and deprive themselves of the bliss of the self within.
The Upanishads say, Hanta, Hanta. Hanta, Hanta. Alas, alas. See, I'm saying all of this to you, and you'll tell me, look at everyone else. Look at what they're doing. Everybody's enjoying in the world only. So why should I follow this? Why should I listen to you? You're quite right. There's never going to be a majority in this subject. In fact, some may argue that there are 30 plus people in this class. Chamatkar. Let's see how long it lasts. There's never going to be a majority in this classroom. There's never going to be a majority in this subject. The institution I graduated from, by the time I graduated, it was 30 years since the institution started. And there were but 300 or 400 graduates. 400 graduates. Nothing to boast about. Same thing, you organize a party. Everybody loves free parties. My friend was opening a restaurant. So I went to that restaurant opening. 600 people showed up. So if you go simply by the numbers, the world is clearly telling you what to do. If you simply go by numbers, the world is clearly telling you what to do. This subject is for tigers. This subject is for eagles. They don't go in herds. A tiger lives alone. An eagle flies alone. They may be part of a family. They may be part of a congregation. But they travel alone. So in this subject, in this process of discovery, those who resonate with this may be far and few. See, forget spirituality. Even in the materialistic world, if you want to achieve, say, a degree, you have to go away for a few years. Especially, I have a friend. She's still studying. But oh boy, once she's done, she's doing a PhD. Once she's done, she'll be a force to reckon with. That journey of doing a PhD, of studying for so long, not many can do it. Not many can keep that consistency. Many may argue it's not worth it. But you have to have that conviction in yourself. You have to have that conviction, and that conviction can only be born through your own study and reflection. You can't look at the example of others and try to mimic them. The spiritual journey is a single file path. The spiritual journey is a single file path. At most, you can have your partner by your side for some amount of time, but even that you will have to let go of. It's a single file path. It's your own journey. So the bulk of the world cannot see beyond their nose. The reason why the bulk of the world is not on this journey is because the mind seeks instant gratification. What will give you pleasure right now? What will give you returns right now? There's nothing right or wrong in it. We're just discussing, we're diagnosing the situation. The bulk of the world is lost in instant gratification, in what will give instant pleasure. But these pleasures, as instantly as they come, they also leave. To build anything lasting requires to break away from the herd. So here we are talking in a spiritual timeline. In a spiritual timeline, Adi Shankaracharya says, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. Again birth, again death. Again birth, again death. This is where the thought of reincarnation is. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about reincarnation in this text. But this is why the thought of reincarnation is so powerful. Because your journey, or your search, whatever you're looking for, it didn't begin at birth. Your journey didn't begin at birth. You brought with you yourself, your past, your vasanas. Every child is born with certain tendencies, is born with certain desires, is born with certain inclinations. And of course, they pick up more on the way, no doubt. But where did that come from? Where did those inclinations, tendencies come from? And when someone passes, the physical body is left behind. But what happened to all those thoughts and aspirations and ideas and wishes and desires and fears and regrets and all sorts of things that a person has? What happens to all of that? It carries forward. That's reincarnation. So your journey hasn't started at birth. There's been a past you. Before that, there was a past you. Before that, there was a past you. And this journey doesn't end with death. After this, there will be another you. After that, there'll be another you. After that, there'll be another you. That's the theory of reincarnation. So Adi Shankaracharya says, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani Jathare Shainam. Iha samsare bahudustare, kripya pare pahi murare. Again birth, again death. Again birth, again death. He as a seeker is pleading, when will you help me exit this cycle? When will you help me find the end of this? What is the end to this? We're not asking you to agree with Adi Shankaracharya. We're asking you to at least consider this thought. What on earth are we looking for? And are these instant gratifications actually getting us what we're looking for? The problem is we make a khichdi out of life and we're caught up. Whatever we're chasing, some issues arise, some problems arise, some complications arise. And we're caught up in just either chasing some instant gratifications or solving some complications. Our lives are mundane. These fleeting pleasures have trapped us. It's called samsara. Samsara is a web of entanglement. That's the meaning of samsara. So long as we're stuck in samsara, we have no time. We're so exhausted in dealing with samsara, we have no time to consider this. But the truth remains. He says, the wise do not indulge. The wise do not indulge in such transient pleasures. The wise work towards lifting themselves out of this. And the wise don't roam around in packs. The wise don't look at others to mimic. The wise follow their own lead. So will you have to follow your own lead. You will have to gain this knowledge and your understanding. You have to come to your own conclusion and lift yourself out. An adult doesn't look at the example of children. A child looks at the example of children. A child will compare with other children. An adult will never compare with a child. So he's given this experiment. The infant will always reach out for the candy. The adult understands the candy is just an immediate kick you get. See, when you may argue, no, my child is very smart. He'll take the 1,000 rupee note. Some of you may say that. My child is very smart. Ask him what he'll do with the 1,000 rupee note. He'll buy candies. He'll buy 1,000 candies. A slightly smarter child will start a candy business. Means what? He'll buy candies at 1 rupee, sell it at 2 rupees. He'll make more money. So as they grow smarter, but an infant will just grab the candy, that immediate instant gratification. We are spiritual infants. We're spiritual infants. We can't see beyond our nose. And we deprive ourselves of the greater joys that life has to offer us, that our spiritual journey has to offer us. And what joys they are. Incredible.
This lasting happiness, this enduring bliss, lies not in outward splendor and grandeur, not in riches, but in your own self. You must gain the knowledge of your inner self, the living knowledge of the reality through the spiritual laws of life. You will have to approach it as university students pursue their studies. Take up each idea, reflect upon it, make it your own. Apply this knowledge in your life. Thus, through knowledge and application, discover the primeval source of happiness within you. Chapter 2, World and Human Being.
So the first was a primer. The first chapter was a primer. It was telling you the role Vedanta plays in your life. So there are broadly speaking, three broad roles. It will help you gain success through its fundamental principles, through the knowledge it talks about, the knowledge of concentration, consistency, cooperation. And broadly speaking, what is it? It helps you develop your intellect. With a sharp intellect, you can think, reason, judge, decide. Talk to any entrepreneur. They'll say the biggest problem with people is their inability to make decisions. Their inability to assess situations and make decisions. They're always looking at others to make the decision. So the knowledge of Vedanta, even in the mundane world, will help you become a decision maker. Will direct you with a clarity of thought, will give you a foundation of values with which to build whatever you are looking to build. Beyond that, it will help you procure happiness. It will help you manage your mind, which will keep things in control, keep things in proportion. Ultimately, beyond managing your mind and managing your business, it serves to guide you on this journey within, towards the discovery of newer realms of consciousness, higher realms of consciousness. It helps you grow up spiritually. So that's what Vedanta has to offer. Take what you will. There's no right Vedantin or wrong Vedantin. Wherever you are and whatever makes sense to you, take what you will. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, Yatha ichhasi, tatha kuru. Do what you wish. Whatever makes sense to you, take it. So that's the liberal attitude with which Vedanta shares this knowledge for all seekers. It's up to you. So now we begin with the very beginning. In order to understand life and this phenomenon of life and the inner journey, it's important to begin from an assessment of what we know, what we see around us, the world, its nature, and the individual, the human being, and its nature. So that's why this chapter is aptly titled World and Human Being.
Mystery of the origin. The origin of the world baffles human comprehension. Creation poses a great mystery. Whence did all creatures originate? Their ancestry perplexes scientific inquirers. Did the chicken come first or the egg? Did the tree come first or the seed? Who is your father's 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 first father? The answer to this question seems to be held in utmost secrecy, obscurity, mystery. The best of human intellects have failed to throw light on this fundamental question. Did the cause appear first or the effect? Is there a primal cause? Can there be a causeless cause? The mystery that surrounds these questions has perturbed the human mind. To appease the disturbed mind, a name was given to that causeless cause. The name was God. God is believed to be the primal cause of everything. He is reckoned to be the origin of the world, reputed to be the creator of the universe. Some posit a personal God with a form, others an impersonal God without a form. Few understand that the introduction of God as creator is a mere intellectual proposition. No inquirer of truth would be satisfied with such a bare postulation. In mathematics, a problem is solved by first assuming the final answer to be x. Surely, x is not the answer to the problem. X is only a postulation. The real answer has to be derived methodically by applying the laws of mathematics. In a typical problem, the volume of a room is given as 2,400 cubic feet. The length of the room is 16 feet and breadth 15. You are asked to calculate the height of the room. The answer is derived thus. Let the height of the room be x feet. Volume equals length multiplied by breadth multiplied by height. 2,400 equals 16 multiplied by 15 multiplied by x. 2,400 equals 240x. Therefore, x equals 2,400 divided by 240 equals 10 feet.
So just as you have to derive the answer in mathematics, you have to derive the answer in spirituality as well. Just as you take the possible answer to the question to be X, you give it a name, you give it a symbol. Similarly, God is just a symbol, a name given to this open query in the spiritual realm. You may argue, I'm not good at mathematics. Especially in those father and son problems. You guys remember those father and son problems from when you were in school? The father is 3 times the age of the son. After 4 years, the father will be twice the age of the son. find the father's age. And somehow you do something, the son's age comes bigger than the father. And you're like, how can this be the right answer? A lot of children will be identifying with this. The son's age is bigger than the father. But whether you're good at it or not, you have to become better at it to pass the exam, right? So to pass the exam of life, to come to a sensible conclusion, you have to derive the answer. God is just a name. The idea behind, but even in our culture, we have seen various powers manifesting in this world, and those powers are inexplicable beyond a point. The idea is who's behind those powers. So we give that a name, we give it a symbol, we give it a form. This beautiful world is being maintained. What is behind this maintenance? We call it Vishnu. The beautiful world has a process of dissolution. Who's behind this power of dissolution? We call it Shiva, Maheshwara. There's so much creation happening. Nirman. Things are being born out of almost a nothingness. Who is this? Who is behind this power of creation? We call it Brahma. And the variety of powers which are manifest in this universe. We have innumerable of them in every aspect, for every group of people, in every area of the world. Forest people have their own gods, desert people have their own gods, coastal people have their own gods, depending on the powers they see functioning around them. So the very source of God has been a postulation on something that is not explicable. You cannot easily see it, easily understand it. So who created the world? Who's the cause behind everything? Who's the control over everything? That name was given God. So God is just a name. God is just a name. And someone who is not satisfied with just giving it a name will not be satisfied with the various stories. And see, that's why you can't take any of these stories at literally. They're all symbolic. They're all inviting you to think. They're all inviting you to question. They all relate to your life. So the great thinkers in the spiritual field, and they didn't mean for these stories to be taken literally, but alas, unfortunately, we've made a mockery out of religion. All those who intended this to be a path of truth, a path of discovery, well, some of them have graves, so they're rolling in their graves. Some of them they don't no longer have a body, it's been burnt away. But they are lamenting it. We've made a mockery out of this. So you have to progress systematically with your understanding of God. And that's precisely what the subject of Vedanta does.
Similarly, God was initially assumed as the origin of the world. None realizes that God is just another word for origin. That does not solve the fundamental question as to the origin of the world. Nevertheless, from time immemorial, humanity has passively accepted God as the originator, creator of everything. They, in their innocence, claim that the concept of God is clear to them. Ironically, they criticize intelligent inquirers who probe into this mystery and condemn them as blasphemous, sacrilegious. Thus, phonetic concepts have assumed epidemic proportions. Judgment has been thrown to the winds and people have lost their reason. Mere words are being parroted by reputed preachers to innocent masses. These stories and histories of God, no doubt transmitted faithfully for generations, can never solve the mystery of the unknown. Vedanta unravels this mystery. It puts forth no theory, nor proposition, nor hypothesis. Its approach to the problem is scientific and experimental. It enunciates the facts of life, proceeds logically from the known to the unknown, reaches you wherever you are, takes you shoulder to shoulder, step by step, from ignorance to knowledge, from delusion to enlightenment. You then understand, appreciate, experiment, verify, and experience the ultimate truth.
So, for those who want to travel this journey, Vedanta helps you discover and unfold God. It unfolds the Godhood within you. The ultimate proclamation of Vedanta, the Godhood lies within you. That thou art, Tat Tvamasi. You are that. So, this journey ends not with an intellectual understanding. It's not just reading a book and trying to get an understanding. It's an experiential state which you gradually lead to. So ultimately, for those who want to be on this journey, Vedanta can take you to resolving this ultimate mystery of life. What is God? What is the origin?
From the known to the unknown. The origin of the world is unknown to the masses. People wish to know the unknown origin. They inquire, they question. The ready answer provided to them is God is the origin. God created the world. Most people accept it. They are quite satisfied. But it does not answer the question, since God is equally unknown. How can one unknown convey the knowledge of another unknown factor? Knowledge of anything can be gained only through known factors. Any number of unknown factors cannot provide you with a grain of knowledge. Knowledge proceeds from the known to the unknown. It is the fundamental principle of education.
So knowledge proceeds from the known to the unknown. No number of unknown factors can give you any knowledge. That knowledge may be true, but it won't be of any use to you. That knowledge may be true, but it's of no use to you. You may ask, where is New Delhi station? Suppose a person who comes to New Delhi for the first time, they have no idea what is New Delhi. Where's New Delhi station? Suppose a foreigner comes. You tell them, New Delhi station is near Connaught Place. The fellow will be looking at you with a blank face. What is Connaught Place now? Why? Because Connaught Place is unknown to them. Is it factually true? Yes. Connaught Place is near, New Delhi station is near the railway station. But is it helpful? The world is created by God. It may be true. I don't know. It may be true. But is it helpful for you? So we're not saying the knowledge is wrong. We're saying proceeding with it through these, in this manner, is not helpful to you. You cannot proceed with unknown factors. To get to something unknown, you have to proceed with something known. That's why you give directions. You walk 500 meters straight, take a left. Maybe the foreigner went to a bakery. You see, if you walk another 100 meters, there'll be a bakery. Just after the bakery, there's another right turn. You take that right turn, you walk straight ahead, there'll be the railway station. When you provide known factors, the solution will be possible. But through unknown factors, it doesn't help. So simply saying God created the world or God is infinite, this has no meaning per se. Those who are satisfied are satisfied. God knows why they're satisfied. But this subject is for those of us who aren't satisfied with that answer.
A simple illustration elucidates this principle. A tourist wishes to visit the local museum. He does not know its location. He inquires. You tell him that it's behind the public library. But the location of the library is unknown to him. He cannot find it. You then tell him the museum is next to the hospital. He still cannot locate it since he does not know where the hospital is. You may give him scores of other factual details of the location of the museum. None of them can help as long as they are unknown to him. But give him a known factor. Tell him that the museum is opposite the clock tower, and he knows where the clock tower is. This known factor instantly conveys the knowledge of the unknown location of the museum. Similarly, the mystery of the origin can be solved in terms of what is already known to you. This principle of education has been ignored. The unknown God is described in other unknown terms. God is said to be infinite love, infinite mercy, infinite power, etc. But the human intellect cannot conceive infinity. All these terms are unknown. Such unknown agents cannot solve the mystery of the unknown.
And so said the great Persian poet Omar Khayyam. They talked about and about. All these scriptures, all these lecturers, all these so-called religious learned people, speaker included, they talked about and about. And he says, I came out of the same door I entered. I got nowhere. I got nowhere. See, you go to YouTube right now, there's a wealth of information available on spirituality. You want to, there are books and scores of things. Talk about and about. The approach to the study has to be methodic. The approach to the study has to be simple. Read less, but go deep. See, all the knowledge, if you ask me, is contained in any one book. All the knowledge is contained in any one book. If you go deep, you'll be able to understand all of it. You don't have to read scripture after scripture after scripture. Take the Bhagavad Gita, for example. It's all you need. It's all you need. But we have a habit of going broad. We can't go deep. So we talk about and about.
The great Persian poet philosopher Omar Khayyam makes a satirical reference to such futile descriptions of the supreme reality. They talked about and about. I came out of the same door I entered. But the mass of humanity is innocent. They struggle with these unknown terms and terminologies. Little do they realize the limitation of their efforts. The true knowledge of God remains ever in obscurity. The intelligent become conscious of their incapacity and give up their pursuit of God. The ignorant believe that they know God. In their ignorance, they parrot their undigested concepts to the world.
So those who find no proper answers give up this pursuit. They say there's no point in pursuing the spiritual journey, the scriptural journey, especially through the process of religion. And on the other hand, you have people who are preaching dogmatic views. You have those who are parroting funny concepts, and people are blindly following them. And the reason we're saying this is because there are wars fought in the name of these beliefs. Different sects of people who come to all different conclusions. They fight with each other. Blood is shed. So that's the problem. It requires a reset. The approach to religious studies, the approach to spiritual study requires a reset in the way we approach it. So, with that thought, we'll conclude today. We'll do this beautiful poem and continue with the rest of the chapter in the next class. I'm happy to take up any questions if there are.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I came out of the same door I entered. Can you just elaborate on it?
What was the question?
Yeah, what was the question? I missed it.
I came out of the same door I entered. Can you just elaborate on it slightly? I'm little,
I came out of the same door I entered. Matlab, I got nowhere.
yeah. So basically,
I entered,
like a mess.
I saw the tamasha,
Hmm.
and I just walked out. Huh? When you go to a party, you don't want to be there. What do? Let's leave. You come out of the same door you entered. Means it didn't get me anywhere. It didn't get me anywhere. It didn't help me progress in any way. They talked about and about. They didn't get to the point. Nobody was talking about, nobody was getting to the actual point. So it's a satirical way of saying it didn't help me. A waste of time.
Could I give a personal experience?
Sure, Omji.
You see, in when I was very in school or early days of my life, there used to be exhibition in Delhi, very famous exhibition. There used to be long queue for the tickets also. So we used to stand in the queue for a long time and took hour to take a ticket. After entering in the exhibition, there again used to be so many queues in the so many stalls. Then I asked them, what is the shortest queue? So he showed me a queue where 5, 6 people were there. So I was behind them. Then later on, I realized I have come out of the exhibition. I have not seen anything in the exhibition. So the life is like that. You see, we don't see anything. But sir, I got another thing to tell you that the example of a child has been used for candy and the dollar or whatever money. Certainly the child will select candy because he knows the value of candy. He doesn't know the value of. It is an adult thought that we laugh at a child. You see, the child has a lot of things to teach us. You see, children are always very healthy. We are not healthy because of our emotional problems we have. Children can teach us a lot of, they get over a lot of problems themselves. They fight with it, then again they become friends. We don't. Children laugh a lot. We don't laugh a lot.
So Omji,
So
so while you are digressing, your point is very pertinent. Elsewhere in the scripture, he says, a person close to God is like a child.
Yeah.
A person close to God is like a child. So while your example is not quite relevant to the context of the example about notes and things, but we totally get what you're saying, because that innocence, that beauty, the purity that is there in a child is something we, of course, lose over the years as we wrap ourselves in adult complications. Yes, any questions?
Hari Om Service, I have a question. So on the topic of say God being thought about as the originator or the creator of the world. So in our Hindu scriptures, we have different set of texts. Like one is say Bhagavad Gita, which is very intellectual. On the other hand, there is Bhagavad Puran. So in Bhagavad Puran, it has detailed narration of stepwise events. So it hardly sounds symbolic. So like, would you say it is at odds with texts like Bhagavad Gita?
Who wrote the Bhagavad Gita?
Supposedly Ved Vyasji.
Who wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam?
That I am not aware.
Yes. If you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first chapter, I don't know how you divide it. Maybe it's like sections or whatever. But in the very beginning, you have Ved Vyasji a little frustrated, a little agitated. So he's just wondering, I've written such a beautiful text. Bhagavad Gita is giving so much of knowledge to mankind. The entire epic of the Mahabharata, it has such a beautiful story with so many lessons to narrate, but still my mind is not happy. So sage Narada comes to him, and he narrates an incident about his own life. And then he says, the reason you're not happy is because the Bhagavad Gita only appeased the intellect. You haven't done anything to appease the mind. The Bhagavad Gita only appeased the intellect. You haven't done anything to appease the mind. And what is the mind appeased by? The mind is appeased by glories. The mind is appeased by celebrations. The mind is appeased by beautiful stories and depictions through which you can celebrate the Lord. So he said, okay, I get what you're saying, Narada. I'm going to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, this is said that the Srimad Bhagavatam was written because Ved Vyas wanted to appease the minds, not just the intellects. Right? So you have to take it in that spirit. The Srimad Bhagavatam is a beautiful tale where you celebrate the glories of the Lord, but you're not meant to take those stories literally. The intellect is not meant to take those stories literally. You can't peg yourself to understand, oh, this is how the world was created. Although there is a lot of see, the beauty of the scriptures is that it doesn't try to give you an answer. The beauty of the scriptures is it doesn't try to give you an answer. It tries to give you more questions. See, again, in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, incidentally, I'm reading the Bhagavatam right now. That's why these stories are fresh in my mind. In the beginning of the Bhagavatam, he talks about Narada talks about his previous life. So Vedvya says, what? But you are a son of Brahma itself. You were born with the creation itself. He's like, no. In the past Kalpa. And you're like, what? I thought Brahmaji created the world. Now, what is the past Kalpa? It makes you think. It's inviting you to the openness of idea that time is in fact inconceivable, it's infinite. And before the previous Kalpa, there was a previous Kalpa. To give some structure to this thought, we create the ideas of Manvantaras. We say, okay, we give the ideas of Saptarishis. Each Manvantara has its own Saptarishi. They're all symbolic knowledge. They're all symbolic knowledge. Ultimately pointing to an unknown. Nobody knows the origin. It's not something that can be intellectually known. So, short answer to your question, after the long answer, is that the scriptures give you food for thought rather than food to satisfy yourself. It's only to invite more questions, because ultimately it's in this inquiry that you will go within. No scripture worth its name will say this is the right path. This is the only path. The Rig Veda pronounces truth is one. Sages call it by different names. There are different ways, there are different names through which you can approach the truth. So these are not at odds with each other. They are appealing to different aspects of your personality. And both are important.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, we'll conclude today. Early chutney. We'll see you again on Monday at 8 a.m. Same classroom. Have a good week. Have a good weekend. Let's come back fresh to begin next week. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you.